Welcome to Exploring the Celtic World. In the previous video, we were speaking about the Trojan origins of the Franks and the Macedonians, and also the Romans. And in this video, we said we're going to be speaking about the Turks. So it starts, a third people of the same origin, so the Trojans, were the Torki or the Turks. And we have a name here, Torkutos, from whom the Turks get their name. So this would be a Trojan king, Torkutos. Before we go deep into the video, I would like to just clarify something that I think could be important to consider. We've kind of spoke about this before in the playlist. So we're going to Genesis 10, the table of nations. So the generations of the sons of Noah. We've spoken about Togarmah, son of Gomer, son of Japheth, that Togarmah is strongly connected with Turkic nations. So Turkish nations coming from Togarmah. So I just want to make this point that when it's saying, the origin of the Torki or the Turks, were the Trojan people, I don't think this is speaking about, all the Turkish nations or all the Turkish people, coming from the Trojans, because what about Togarmah? So that's just something that I'd like to say for the video. But let's try explore the etymology. Where could this name Turk be coming from? We're going to use this source, Hittites and the Etruscans. Sometimes we mention this source in the videos, but we don't actually use it. So we'll try to use it for this video. Let's read from here. The Etruscan name Tarquin for a king is compared by Dr. Taylor with the Siberian Tarchon. And then we'll jump down. The word Tarquin is the Hittite Tarku, Tarak, Tarku, Tarka. The word rendered Tarchon in Greek. So now we see here with Tarku, very close to the sound of the name Turk. But this has been connected with the Etruscans. It says here, the name of Tarchon thus connects the Hittites with Siberia on the one side and Etruria on the other. Let's look at some examples of this with the Etruscans. We have Lucius Tarquinius Superbus, a legendary seventh and final king of Rome. So the Etruscans were ruling over the Romans, but this is a legendary king. So Tarquin the Proud. And then we also have a city of the Etruscans called Tarquinia. Tarquinia. And this could be founded by Tarchon. So we are in the legendary history. So Tarchon and his brother Tyrrhenus. So what I'm thinking here is similar to what we kind of said at the start. I think we have to be careful with how we think about this name Turk. So let me explain. We see in this name Tarku. And when we see that, we can use the etymology to say, is this saying Turk? Was this Etruscan king a Turk? Because we see Tarku. I just want to show an example where I think we have to just be careful how we interpret this. So if we go to an Egyptian pharaoh called Taharka, now we notice here we have Tarku, Tarakos, Tirko. Now this Egyptian pharaoh was also a king of Kush. So it's actually an Ethiopian pharaoh. So I thought this might really show that point quite well, that, we see the variation here, Tarku. So if we imagine that we didn't have this picture, if we didn't have this picture, but we've got the name, we've got the history with the name, but we don't know what he looked like. And we see that he was called Tarku. Then just because we have this etymology of how it could connect to the name Turk, scholars, researchers might say, look, this was a Turkish king or a Turkish pharaoh ruling over Egypt, because we can see Tarku. But we know that this was actually an Ethiopian. So yeah, that's just the point that I want to make from this video, that we got to think about the context. So when we think about Turk, we're thinking about a region, we're thinking about a people and their culture, the Turkish, the Turks. But when we see this this name Torki, Torkutos, and then we see it with the Etruscans, with Tarquinius and Tarquinia, I don't think we must jump to the idea of were they Turks, in that sense of how we think about it in the modern context. It's going to be more about a title, a title for a king, a man prince. So it's a descriptive title. I don't think it's describing the ethnicity. So let me know if you think that's a fair assessment. Let's carry on. So we did mention that we have Tarchon and his brother Tyrrhenus, who founded the Etruscan League of 12 cities. So we're going to come back to this point. And we even have the sea known as the Tyrrhenian Sea. So these two brothers, Tyrrhenus and Tarchon, being the founders of the Etruscans, of the civilization, according to the legendary history. And it gets quite interesting if we go to this page on Tarchon. We do have a scholar called a Hittite expert, Oliver Gurney, thought that it might be related to the name of the Luwian storm god Tarchon, which in turn could be connected to gods present also in the Norse mythology as Thor, in the Celtic mythology as Tyrrhenus, and in the Baltic mythology as Hercules. So we see here we've got Thor, very famous Norse god. So this just gives us a potential option. If we go back to where we started, where we're seeing Torkutos, from whom the Turks get their name. Could this be connected with Thor? So if we go back to Tarchon, so it would be this part here. So Tar, and we see these variations. It says, so Tar, Dur, Tur. So when we think about Tor or Thor, there could be other ways of saying it, like Tor, Tar, or Tur. So with these connections to the etymology, even with Tarku, and this could be connected to where we get the name Turk, we can't be surprised when we start to see scholars or researchers asking questions about Thor. Was he a Turk? So let's look at this. We have this page saying, did Odin come from Troy? The Anatolian origins of the Norse pantheon. So researchers are going to start asking now, was the Norse pantheon, were they Turks? Because of all those things we've spoken about. So I've already made my point, so I won't say it again. We might just recap with that towards the end. But were the Norse gods foreigners, according to Snorri Sturluson, an Icelandic scholar, 1179 to 1241 AD, for when Snorri Sturluson was alive. We're going to read a few interesting things from this page. Just want to go to the part that I've highlighted. Okay, I want to read from here. Now, speaking about Odin, one of the Norse pantheon, how he's coming from Troy and going further north, so into northern Europe. It says, when the king learned of the journey of these Asians, who were called the Aesir, he went to meet them, offering to grant Odin as much authority in his kingdom as he wanted. So it's describing the Aesir. So this is a part of the Norse religion or the Norse mythology, but describing them as Asians, so foreigners. This just reminds me of what we were speaking about in one of our previous videos. We used this source, Herodotus, The Origins of the Persian War. So the Persian War with the Greeks. And it speaks about the Persians, that they traced to the attack upon Troy their ancient enmity towards the Greeks. So we spoke about the Persians identifying with the Trojans, that they were Asiatic. So the Trojans would be, Asiatic. So does that make sense with what we're reading here? It's saying, did Odin come from Troy? So that would be Odin and Thor would be coming from Troy. So were they Trojans? But they're being described as foreigners, being described as Asians or Asiatics. So that would make sense for the Trojans. Now there's some interesting things here. It says, in any event, Odin picked a place to found a new town. There, in accordance with the customs of Troy, he selected 12 men to administer the law of the land. So that was interesting. We're going to jump back to where we were looking at Tarquin and Tyrrhenus. So these princes that found the Etruscan civilization. So notice how it says that they founded the Etruscan League of 12 cities. So I just wondered if that could be connected with the Etruscans and their 12 cities. And this house describes Odin picking 12 men to administer the law of the land, so customs of Troy. Now, can we make sense of what we've been covering in this video? So what I've done is just written down some notes. Hopefully these will help us. So the Etruscan princes, so if we think of it like a royal line, we see that the Etruscans, they would trace their descent back to Zeus, but there's two different genealogies, one that goes through Manes and then another one that goes through Hercules. And when we spoke about this in one of our videos, we said one way to make sense of this would be that, is Manes another name for Hercules? Then we can make sense of these different genealogies. Now for Tarchon, I actually couldn't find a background, which is interesting. We did read that Tarquin is the brother of Tyrrhenus, but when you try search just for Tarquin, you can't really find his background. So that's interesting. Now we're going to think about Odin and Thor. Were they Trojans? But before we do that, I just want to remind us of one detail about the Trojans. So this Trojan royal family that we've been working with, the founder Tyrrhenus, we saw that there was a connection where we have a different account where he's described as a Tyrrhenian prince. So this connects Tyrrhenus with the Tyrrhenians or the Etruscans. So that would be the founder of the Trojan line being described as a Tyrrhenian prince. So then we do see a connection with the Trojans and this Etruscan royal line. But what about Odin and Thor? Now, if we look at this family tree, we can't see Odin or Thor, very easily. So how are we going to, work this out? Based on some of the things that we've said in the video. If we go to the page on Odin, it says here, Tacitus refers to the god Odin as Mercury, Thor as Hercules. So the Norse pantheon being connected with the Roman and the Greek, and Thor as Hercules. So the Greek demigod Hercules, is it really the same as the Norse Thor? So this connection would make a big difference to our study and our thinking now about this genealogy, because if we insert Thor for Hercules, then we'd have the Etruscan, these Tyrrhenians, or there's Etruscan royal line coming from Thor. So Thor and Odin. So that actually would work with what we said in the video, that we saw this connection with the Etruscan 12 cities and Odin coming to the north and setting up those 12 leaders, that it was a custom of Troy. We can see a potential connection with Odin and Thor with the Etruscans. So that's very interesting. Thor, was he a Turk? I think we've made the point, throughout the video, but just for clarity and saying it again, if you're thinking about Thor and his variations, he may have been called, Tarchon or Tarquin or Tarku. But now, because he is called Tarku, or should I say possibly called Tarku, it doesn't mean that he's a Turk. But it's kind of strange because we're seeing the etymology, how this could come down to as Turk. So then you could be saying, well, if he's called Tarku, is it not saying that he is a Turk? But I think it depends on what we're thinking when we hear this word. So the context. So that's why I just wanted to show this example that Tarhaka, you could call him Tarku, but you wouldn't describe him as a Turk. He's an Ethiopian. So I don't think you can use Tarku to speak about ethnicity. So I think, we've made that point now, I think, quite clearly. So what we're going to do is move on to a different source. It's called the Etruscans. Were they Celts? So the Etruscans are very mysterious. Lots of different connections been made with the Etruscans. Who are they? Who were they? And this one, considering the Celts. Now, does that make sense just based on what we've got in front of us here? So we can see we have spoken about a Celtus coming from Hercules. That was one of our early videos. And interesting how we do keep mentioning Egypt. So we have a Celtus coming from Hercules, but the Etruscan royal line coming from Hercules. So just on this page, we can see that there would potentially be some kind of connection with the Etruscans and the Celts, with this mythology, with these royal lines. So that's going to be the next video. And we're going to try use the Bible to see if the Bible helps us with this study. Does it give us, if you want to say, like an interesting clue to work with? So that'll be the next video, or the next few videos, trying to learn more about Hercules. So thank you for watching this video. Hope it was, hope you found it interesting. If you'd like to share any comments, we'll look for the comments to see if you have any ideas about Torkutos. And we're still trying to work out, who is King Frigas. But until that next video, take care, and we'll see you soon.